Hello, hello. Happy Wednesday, good people. It's good to see everybody out there in virtual land. I am super excited for this conversation. But you guys know how we do when we hop on, drop where you are tuning in from, where you are located. I'm Megan Stevens, Senior Director of Strategic Partnerships here at Kenzie Academy. Generally, you see there's something different about me today, and that's because usually I'm flying with my amazing co-host, Matt Cummings, but Matt couldn't join us today. And actually, if you can go ahead and send good vibes and good energy to Matt. Matt, we miss you. We're gonna see you on the next session, but we'll hold it down today for you. I know you're tuning in. You know our rules. We like to keep it kind and keep it relative to the conversation. But then also, if there's something that resonates with you, we would love to see that gem drop in the chat. So as folks are still filing in, let's go ahead and drop where we are, where we're tuning in from. And I'm going to bring in my amazing guest that we have today, who's going to tell you all about our partnership with Taro, what that means for the Kenzie community and beyond. So let's go ahead and bring Raul up to the stage. Yes, yes, Raul, how are
Mm.
you, sir?
I am doing great. Really happy to be here, Megan.
Likewise, it's so good to talk to you today. I'm super excited for this conversation. And I know it's going to be extremely helpful, like I said, to the Kinsey community and alum, but also beyond. So, Raul, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I know that you're co-founder of Taro, but let's dive into your history and your experience a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Rahul. I'm the co-founder of Taro. My entire career has been as a software engineer. I went to
Okay,
Stanford. I was a founding engineer at a startup which got acquired by Pinterest. That was a fun story.
gotcha.
I was there for a
Ooh,
little bit. And then after about 3 years at Pinterest, I joined Facebook, which is now known as Meta, as we all know. And then a year and a
yeah.
half ago is when I left Meta to start Taro. And the mission with Taro is,
Ah,
hey, I've been an engineer my whole career. And,
yeah,
I'm a pretty competent coder. Like I knew how to code pretty well, frankly, but
yeah.
I still struggled a lot to achieve
Mm,
success in my career. And it turns out that
okay.
there's so much more to the engineering job beyond just coding. And that was the insight
Mm,
we led to starting Taro. And the mission now is how can we take that information, those tools and frameworks and people, frankly, that helped me so
yeah.
much as I got deeper in my career? How can we make that accessible to everyone through Taro?
I love it. You dropped some nuggets already in your intro that we can definitely dive into, but mostly about being a great technologist, right?
Yeah.
And how that relates to your work. So you mentioned that being a great coder doesn't necessarily translate to being a good software engineer. So can you tell us what specific skills do you believe are essential, for being an effective engineer?
Yeah, the way I like to answer this question is by starting out saying inherently you have to understand that software engineering is a team sport. When you go into
Mm,
industry, this is something I didn't realize, right? When you go into
mm,
industry, it's not about, contrary to what you might see on TV or movies or whatnot, it's not about going into a dark room, putting your hood
mm,
on, and starting to code all day alone. That almost never
yeah.
happens for effective engineers. What effective engineers
Mm,
do is they understand how does the code I write, and there will be code that you write, so I'm not discounting coding, that's still
right.
important, but how does the code I write ladder up to the organizational and company priorities? How do I work with other people to get their buy-in on
Mm,
approving my code, figuring out potential issues, scaling, working with other teams? How do I do effective relationship management with my manager, right?
mhm,
So much of
mhm,
your career growth is going to, frankly, depend on does your manager trust you and like you? And these are things that
mm,
I didn't know about. And, a lot of the people who I worked with and I talk to even today don't quite realize that those are the skills. So just
gotcha.
summarizing, things like how do you connect your work to priorities? How do you work with your
Mhm,
manager and the immediate team that
mhm,
you have? And also, how do you anticipate challenges in the work that you're doing? Those are all the things that I feel like are actually completely independent of your skill at coding, and yet
yeah,
they really dictate, how far you go.
I love it. So you really talked about a lot of those human skills, interaction.
Yeah.
You referenced it being a team sport. So then how does Taro support his participants in his career growth and
Mm.
achieving those non-coding skills?
Yeah. Okay. So I think that one of the really key insights that my co-founder and I have had is that a lot of this is feeling like you know someone or you have access to people who can show you how
Mm,
it's done, who have done it, who have been there and done that. And I
yes.
feel like
Yeah, that's great.
there really is in my head kind of this notion of like a haves and have-nots. And when you don't,
Mm,
when you're part of the have-not group, it just feels so
yeah.
forced. Oh my gosh, there's like this engineer at Google who is so smart and they're so talented, and she's going to just do so well. They have something inherently that I don't have. That's not true, right?
Mhm.
It turns
Yeah,
out when you
yeah,
find someone who works at Google or find someone who works at Microsoft, or pick your favorite company, turns out
yeah,
they are actually not that different from me and you, right?
yeah,
And it's
yeah,
just a question of how do I connect with them and learn their mental model. And so I think what it boils down to on Taro, how we achieve that mission is number one, we put people in a Slack together. We foster interaction through events and the Slack community. So I can say Megan's not
yeah,
that different. I can see how she thinks. Number two, we have
yeah.
content, right? We have master classes and short videos, usually between 3 and 10 minutes long, from
Okay.
very established tech leaders who share what they learned or what nuggets helped them. And both of those really go a long way in kind of
Mm.
I would say reducing that barrier that so many people put up for themselves.
Yeah. So you talked about one of the things I pulled out from there is the importance of social capital, right?
Mhm.
As well of like fostering relationships and getting to know people, but then at the same time of fostering community, of having that interaction with each other.
Mhm.
I was just having a conversation with one of my colleagues who is pursuing an MBA program, and she said that's one of her favorite points right now is that the community discussions, the discussion board, because she's able to level set and check her progress of where she is in conjunction with some of her classmates
Yeah.
and how it's refining and strengthening her skills. So that's an excellent point, Raul. And you mentioned the mission of Taro and why you all built it. So what were some things that were applicable to your experience, right? That really drove the reason for launching Taro.
Yeah, I'll give you one really concrete example to demonstrate that.
Mhm,
When I came out of college, like I said, I was able to code pretty well. If you told me here, build this application or use this API, I could have done it pretty effectively. But like, here's something very basic. When I look back, I'm like, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know
mm.
the job of manager. So, I was like 22, 23 years old. Like I have this like
Okay.
boss, the manager. What does she do all day? I had no idea. And I think just if I had
Mm,
someone who told me, hey, here's what your manager cares about. Here's what they do all day. Here's how you can make their life easier. That probably would have gone a lot further in helping me get promoted and find confidence and build that better relationship with her compared to just me
mm,
coding more, right? And that's what I ended up doing,
gotcha.
and it didn't actually help out. And so that was
Okay.
like one very formative experience for me of like I just could have avoided a lot of anxiety, frankly. And I think my confidence was
Mm,
shot. I got rejected for promotion twice. When I went from entry level to mid level engineer, I got rejected twice, two halves in a row. I got rejected, and that was pretty demoralizing. And
yeah,
it wasn't actually due to my technical skill. And in fact,
lack
I
of
would say
ability. That's right.
it's not, yeah, for most people that
Yeah,
I've now been on the other side. When I was at Meta or Facebook, I was a manager. And I would say that for most people, their technical ability is not the thing that holds them back from career growth.
gotcha.
And so that was
Mm,
really, I think, being number one early in my career, being rejected a couple times for promotion. And then on the other side, coaching people and mentoring people at Facebook and seeing that, hey, this is something that is applicable to many, many engineers, not just me. That was really, I think, what gave me the confidence that, hey, there's an opportunity here, not only to help tons of people, but also ideally we can make a living out of it and do this for
that's
the rest
right.
of our careers.
That's right. That's right. Man, you're dropping so much heat. I'm seeing all the gems being dropped in the chat. And I encourage all of our attendees and folks that are watching, please feel free to drop a question for Raul. We want to make sure that this is a really robust and engaging conversation for you as well, as I see you all interacting with it. But we want to know what you want to know. So
Yeah.
please drop a comment or a question in the chat. So, in doing research and talking with about you to Matt, he told me you have a really awesome YouTube channel. And
Mhm.
so a lot of our students, they are exploring different things, right? They come with transferable skills. Tell us a little bit how you developed your YouTube
Mhm.
channel, how you created its growth, and how that became a popular way for you to share career tips.
Yeah, I mean, so the YouTube channel I think has been amazing, and for anyone watching
Mm,
here, I feel like if you're interested, do it. Like, there's so much value not only in sharing your knowledge, because I'll talk about the benefits of that in terms of like company building and whatnot, but just for yourself too. It's like so much confidence and improvement that you get in interacting with people and presenting yourself. And these are, again, like really important skills, no matter if you're a software engineer or in any other discipline, right? And the way you get better is just by doing it a lot. I think if you look back at my videos or the videos of anyone early on in their YouTube journey, or frankly in their like public speaking journey, they're so cringe. And I
yeah,
actually like
yeah.
seeing how cringe they were, because it reminds me, hey, I learned something in these past
Yeah.
3 or 4 years, right? But I think, to answer your question directly, the idea with the YouTube channel was, if I'm trying to create Taro as a destination for high quality software engineering advice and coaching, I need to have receipts to show that I know what I'm talking about, right? You need
That's
to build
great.
up trust. And I think the number one
Yeah.
way to build up trust is you provide value again and
Mm,
again and again, right? And that's the
yeah,
beauty of
yeah.
YouTube, is that for the past 3 years, almost every week for the past 3 years, I have put out one video a week with something that I think is going to be valuable for you as an engineer. And when you do that enough, people say,
Mm,
hey, now I think this person knows what they're talking about. Let me go check out
yeah,
their platform, their community. And that's been a
yeah.
huge instrumental part of, getting Taro to where it is today.
Yeah, I love it. Provide receipts, be a value add, develop
Exactly.
credibility. That's awesome. We actually have a question that just popped in. So it says, "What's a good strategy to improve your communication and professional relationship building?" Great question.
So I love this question. I think similar to what we were just talking about, actually, with like YouTube and public speaking and putting yourself out there, the best way to get better at it is to do it more. And I think one of the consequences of that, and this is actually why, again, I love Taro, or even things like Kenzie, where you have community. What you want to do is put yourself in a position where the activation energy to practice that skill of communication and professional relationship building is lower, right? So if you're at home,
Mm,
you're in a remote job, and you have like 1 hour of meetings a day, you're not going to get that
mhm,
much better at this skill because you only have 1 hour a day to practice it. But if you involve
mhm,
yourself in the Kenzie Academy like alumni community, or if you join Taro and now you have
mm.
events and people around you literally every single day that you can interact with, you're going to get better way, way faster, right? And so I would
I
say
love
that,
it.
short answer is practice, and then make sure you find out opportunities, meetups, company social hangouts, different team meetings where you put yourself in a bit of an uncomfortable position, so you practice that skill of communication.
So essentially developing your muscle memory for it. Um,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so much
yeah.
of this just turns out to end up being like, are you doing it more and more, and are you pushing yourself each time a bit more?
Yeah, yeah. That's great. And I see, Jessica, thank you for your comment, because the space of community, and to her point, when you're doing something new, is really, really important. Right? When you're learning something new, sometimes it can be isolating and you feel, hey, I'm the only one going through this, or I'm the only one having, this issue, but then you're able to connect with others. So that's awesome. What, for folks who are entering, this is going to be a two-part question, Raul.
Mhm.
For those who are entering, into the space as a junior level developer, and you're encouraging them to kind of expand that muscle memory, to be active, what are their direction or advice from you to really start making an impact early, right? So they become more comfortable in their new work environments.
Yeah. So I would say a couple things. We're talking about people who have found a job, right? And they're like starting off on
Yep.
them, how to succeed. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So in that case, I think one of the really big things I always encourage people is something that I call the talk and observe framework. And what that means is,
Mm,
when you join a new company, the first thing you should do, and this is not surprising to anyone, hopefully, is talk to people. Like, talk to your manager, talk to the tech lead, talk to your immediate team, and ask them, hey, what are your priorities? What challenges are you facing? What do you think I should know as I enter into this role? Right. So that's like just kind of the 101 of onboarding. Talk to people. But there's another part too,
Mhm.
which I think is sometimes overlooked, called the O part, T and O, talk and observe. Observe means I want you to look at people's actions, and oftentimes
Mm,
those can actually reveal a lot more than the words they say to you. And so what I mean by that is look at their GitHub PRs, right? How much code are they writing in a given week? How many comments are they
mm,
leaving on other people's code review? What meetings are they attending, right?
mm,
What changes are they making to the wiki? You probably have some sort of wiki or documentation
mhm,
at your
mhm,
company. So take that body of work they're doing in the past week or past month, and that will give you a really good idea of, hey, they're telling me that project A is important, but if you look at the past month of data, they're spending all their time on project B. And so there's
mm.
probably like a reason for that, a disconnect. And I think just by doing this talk and observe with every person on the team, you get a really, really good sense of what is important, who is important, like, whose code
Yeah,
is being
yeah.
reviewed, whose code is being commented on. And that gives you a really good grounding for making impact within the first few months on the job.
I love it. Talk and observe, the
Talking
T
about,
and O framework.
yeah.
So let's take it to the next level. So we have folks that maybe were really great in their first year. They implemented the talk and observe model, and maybe a little beyond the first year. Now they're looking at transitioning from the junior level to maybe mid level,
Yeah.
right? What are some skills or an additional framework that's needed to be successful in that transition?
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing I'll comment on there is I feel sometimes people are unsure. Hey, what does it mean to be a mid-level engineer, or senior engineer? And I think once people
Hmm.
understand that, it's actually much easier at that point to reverse engineer. Am I working toward that, or have I attained that level of competency? Right. So the way I think about promotion in the engineering world is increasing levels of influence on the people around you, right? So when you're a junior
Mm,
engineer, when you come in, you're doing your thing, you're coding, someone gives you a bug, you finish that
yeah,
bug, great. People trust you with that. When you become
yeah,
mid-level, that's where you start to actually start owning a feature. And senior
mm,
is like, hey, the whole project, and you get to staff or principal level, you're going to be owning probably multiple projects for the whole team, and you're setting the roadmap for the next 6 months or year, right? And so when we talk about that first transition from entry level to mid level, I think really it comes down to, are you starting to see that people are coming to you with questions? That's like a huge
mhm,
indicator in my mind is, okay, instead
yeah,
of just I'm giving you a bug and you're fixing it, you start to become the owner of knowledge. Where, hey, for project A or feature A, Megan, I trust you. Can you help me debug
yeah,
that? Or can you tell me what's
yeah,
the next important thing to implement or look at for project A? And if
yeah,
me as a senior engineer or as a junior engineer, I come to you looking for your feedback, that means you have gained enough influence that you are ready for mid-level. And so
yeah.
that's the barometer of success. Now, to answer your question directly on how do people, make that transition, I really do think it comes down to being really thorough in your work and not just doing the bare minimum to like fix the bug, but hey, explore the fringes, explore the boundaries of that bug so that when
Right.
something else comes up, you can say, hey, actually, this is very similar to this other problem. Let me fix this in a systematic way rather than a one-off way. So now I start to have opinions about what I'm doing. And if you start to have opinions,
Yeah.
that's usually a pretty good sign that you're becoming more
Right.
senior as an engineer.
I love it. So you reiterated some points that you brought up earlier, right? About trust and credibility.
Totally.
And then also though that component of being the owner of this knowledge, to really having that agency to be impactful and to be a value add that you brought up earlier. So that's amazing. Thank you for those gems. So
Mhm.
I want to kind of dive in a little bit to some of the things you learned while launching Taro.
Yeah.
But what's been your biggest learning, and then how have you grown from
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like so many learnings 'cause
that?
when Alex and I, my co-founder, we quit our jobs a year and a half ago. We knew that the mission was how do we help engineers grow and succeed in their career, but the actual manifestation of that in the product, we honestly didn't have that much of an idea. And so there's been so much learning on what people really resonate with. So I think there are kind
Yeah,
of a couple key things I can call out. One is that people really, really value this idea of connecting to basically what I'll call the collective wisdom of the tech industry. So one of the most
gotcha.
popular parts of Taro is this Q&A forum. You can kind of think of it like Quora, but only people who are
Mhm.
part of the Taro premium community can participate. And that friction is actually a good thing because it means that the level of discussion, the
Excellent.
quality of discussion is extremely high. And it took us some time to get there, to that insight that, hey, having a closed community where you have these ideas exchanged in a high quality way, that
Yeah.
effectively over time becomes more and more valuable because now I can go in and say, hey, show me all the questions by mid-level engineers at small companies. And it turns out that that type of question being asked is very different from, let's say, a senior engineer at a big tech company, right? So you can kind of,
Yeah. Yeah.
based on where you are in your career, what company, what level, maybe even what geography, the types of questions you answer or ask are going to change.
Yeah.
One insight that I think it took us a while to get to, but it's extremely valuable now that we have that database built up. Um,
Mm.
and I would say the other thing is around live events. I feel like there's also a magic in, what we're doing right now. It's like I can talk to
That's
you,
right.
have this like really quick interaction,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's really hard to replace just by having like, oh, let me send you, a couple paragraphs of text or even a book or an article. It's always so
That's
much
right.
easier to make that connection and have that
Mm.
intimacy when I'm on a live call. And so I think a lot of Taro you'll see now is pretty much every week we have some live event with a qualified engineering leader or tech lead or someone in the community sharing their experience, and it's been really cool to see the connections that result from that.
That's excellent. And the reason I ask is because when you're starting anything new, there are going to be a lot of things that you learn. And so I wanted the Kenzie community, the Kenzie alum, to maybe be able to identify in your process of launching Taro of them, launching a new career, and how do
Mhm.
you pivot from maybe when a launch doesn't go right, or you're in a constant state of iteration, right, or transitioning from ideation to iteration. Things don't always go right, so the ways that you can pivot, learn from what happened or didn't happen, and to still be successful.
Yeah. And
And
actually,
it
maybe
sounds like
Meg,
you
can
have
I'll
done
just
that.
add one more thing if that's
Sure, go
okay.
ahead. Go ahead.
This idea of like pivoting and iterating, um, that reminds me of one more kind of story here, which is that, when we started Taro, we left our jobs in January 2022. And back then, if you
Okay.
remember, the economy was much, much better than it is today.
Yeah.
Tech was
Yeah.
still doing quite well. People were happy. And I
Yeah.
would say maybe 6 to 9 months in, you start to see a huge, huge wave of layoffs. Right. And so
Mm.
our mission
Yep.
was the same.
Yeah.
Hey, how do we help engineers succeed? But it turns out that a lot of people who initially came into Taro, they got laid off, unfortunately, in those first
Mm.
9 to 10 months. And so all of a
Mm.
sudden, we had to figure out, okay, we're not necessarily a job searching platform, but
Yeah.
what we care about is helping our members succeed. And so we very quickly started to spring up these job searching mechanisms,
Yeah.
and like creating frameworks and tools and open source projects people can contribute to, for example, that they could actually then
Yeah.
use to land that first job. And so that's been another kind of really interesting journey of how do we go from just helping people get promoted or getting onboarded on another company to now also, hey, we're going to be here for you regardless of where you are in your career. And that's been kind of a really kind of frantic learning experience, but also one that I'm grateful that we've
Yeah.
had.
Wow. So you've been able to add another product line or option based off of market need,
Exactly.
which again, in making sure that it serves your community and being at the heart of the mission, which is awesome. So kudos to you and your co-founder on doing that, and making sure and not being rigid and saying, "Hey, this is our vision. This is what we're going to do." But like you said, you saw a gap, and you filled it, provide a solution, and I think that's the heart of entrepreneurship, right? So we just had a question come in, and I appreciate the question. It says, out of curiosity, do you rely mostly on word of mouth? What's your top marketing strategy for gaining new subscribers to Taro?
Yeah, great question. I do think word of mouth is a pretty big source because inherently, when you have these people making connections and helping each other out, there's like an obvious virality factor, if you will, on just like, let me tell my coworker or colleague about Taro. So that's been super important for us. And I think any good product, you want it to have that, word of mouth to grow. I would say the other big thing, two big things, is basically social media. And
Mm.
I'm talking about
Ah,
YouTube and LinkedIn. So YouTube, like we talked about before, Megan, is just like every week for the past 3 years, there's something
yeah,
going out that we think will add value. And I think when you do that enough and you get a substantial size audience, at this point, I think I'm like 75,000
yeah,
subscribers, so like medium sized YouTube
wow,
channel is what I'd
yeah,
call it. I think that
yeah,
that's been a huge source of, hey, some percentage of those 75,000 people well, at least check out your product. And if you feel like you have
That's right.
an
Yeah.
opportunity there to, add value, they're going to actually purchase whatever you're offering. And the other one is LinkedIn.
Okay.
I mean, LinkedIn is by far the biggest professional network in the world. I think almost 900
Mm-hmm.
million or a billion people have accounts on LinkedIn. And so we do the
Right.
same thing. Is I take a YouTube video and I kind of uh, format it in text and like I make it kind of catchy, and I put it on LinkedIn, and that usually does quite well. And so it's
Okay.
another
Yeah.
way to build up trust.
Excellent. I love it. Since we're talking social media, go ahead and make sure you hit subscribe and
Yeah,
follow
definitely.
Raul's personal LinkedIn, to Taro's LinkedIn, to Kenzie's LinkedIn and YouTube, and then of course Raul and Taro's YouTube. We want to make sure we get all the traction, all the engagement, and all the followers to continue to strengthen that community. So we're wrapping up. We have a few minutes here, and so there's so many more questions I want to ask. Let me be very honest, but I want to be considerate of so in the last few minutes, Raul, if you had to give someone kind of parting knowledge, or if you were giving a commencement speech, right? We usually nail things down and give three takeaways. So culminating all the advice and all of the insight and gems you dropped today, what are three things that you would like to leave here for everyone watching?
Ooh, okay. That's a great question. I know one
Okay.
immediately, and I'll have to do a bit more thinking
Okay.
the other two takeaways. But the first one I'll say right off the
Okay. Go
bat
ahead.
is perhaps a bit counterintuitive, and that's why I think it's valuable, is
Mm,
quantity over quality. So when
yeah.
you start
Yeah.
out in anything, so you start out as I'm gonna make a YouTube channel, right? Or I'm gonna start
Yeah.
coding. My advice to you is quantity over quality. Don't worry so much about making the perfect YouTube video or writing the perfect code. It turns out the best way to become better and eventually write perfect code or have the perfect video is make a bunch of bad videos. Write bunch of bad code.
Yeah.
The beauty of software in particular
Mhm.
is that the cost of writing bad code is zero. You can go in, screw around, make a huge issue,
Mm,
totally mess up,
yeah,
and no one's gonna care, right? You can just like
right,
um, delete the project and start brand new, right? So like that's like one thing is like quantity over quality.
yeah,
Don't be so focused on like, oh, I need to make it perfect because that hesitation is gonna hold you back.
yeah.
Um,
Great, I love it.
so that's like the one that I always like to call out. Now, two more takeaways that's gonna stretch me a little bit. uh, I would
Well,
say,
to your point,
yeah,
one of my mentors told me because I was working on submitting a proposal and I was like, it's not perfect yet. It's not perfect. And, I was like, I want to make sure I get it right. And she said, Megan, don't let perfectionism get in the way of doing good.
yeah,
Submit it.
yeah,
And I said, okay, I'll send it. So that's excellent advice
yeah,
for folks. All right, two more
yeah. So, okay,
or
so
one more. How about that? We'll do one more.
let's do one more. Yeah, okay, I like it. But I mean, yeah, just to
Okay.
your point, like done is better than perfect. That's what I tell my team too. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
let's just get it done. Let's keep iterating. I think the other thing that I would say is don't underestimate the value of talking to people and the serendipity that
Yeah.
results from that. I think that sometimes
Ooh, yes.
you don't you can't plan out when you have human interaction. It is going to be messy. It is going to be vulnerable. It is going to be a little awkward, right? But I
Yeah.
think that
Yeah.
unless you open yourself up for that, you're not going to have the chance to get lucky and the chance to have some serendipitous encounter of someone who gives you some
Mm,
insight that blows your mind, or some insight or some connection that gives you a referral to your next great job. And I feel like so often,
mm,
especially engineers, I mean, I lived that life, right? Like we talked about in the beginning, right? So many engineers, they have this attitude of, okay, I'm going to just do my work. I'm going to write really high quality code and I'll say,
yeah. Yeah.
that's not how the world works. And I think that, for engineers, like the premise of Taro and one of my really core beliefs is that when you put yourself in a position to find really high quality people and actually interact with them, build relationships with them, your career will do so much better. You're going to have so much more fun if you do that
Hmm.
compared to if you're just isolated on your own.
Yeah. Yeah. Raul, thank you so much for today. I don't know about the attendees, but I was trying to take mental notes so my attention wouldn't be down writing things down. But some of your insight and advice helped me. So I appreciate it. I know it helped our community as well. You are welcome back anytime you want to join us. We would love to have you come back maybe in a year or so. Let's get an update on Taro and how your community has grown or even changed and evolved. So I
Yeah.
want to say thank you so much for your time. And again, I see Josh. Thank you for dropping links. Go ahead and press submit and follow and subscribe, because we want to make sure, even though this stream is over, that you're constantly getting the insight and knowledge that you need and staying connected to the community. We'll see you soon. I think we have one in a couple of weeks. We hope everyone has a great day. And again, Rahul, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'd love to come back. This is super fun. Thanks, Megan.
Absolutely. Okay, for sure. We'll see you all later.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.